Christmas spirit, I think I'm going to go see Silent Night. That's the plan. All right. So I am running late. I'm running behind, and hopefully I'll just miss the previews, though I don't want to miss the previews, because who wants to miss previews? Let's see what other fantastical action films are coming up, but we'll see.
Hello, hey, Tracy with the good heels on. Let me tell you about my day, it won't be real long. Woke up to a Red Bull before I wash my face.
So I'm here like 10 minutes late.
I'm gonna need all the energy if I'ma see this day. Work hard, play hard, work hard, repeat. Free soul, repetition, so hard for me. Focus on payoff and often that don't come round. And I can't be myself too often, I feel dumbed down. Starting to recall more frequent daydreaming now. Was all I won't get is out of town. But I'm here for now. As soon as I get off, I'm gonna kick it with all the homies. My one piece of relief, I be needing the ones that know me for real. I used to love Saturdays, them was my energy pill. Cartoon and cereal time, it ain't take too much to live. My 20s been a good time, I wish they never would end. But I would give up my prime and be a kid again. Kids just wanna have fun all day, that's all, that's all. Because I say wanna grow up one day, that's all, that's all.
All right, so that movie happened. That was the movie. So Silent Night is a film directed by John Woo, legendary John Woo. Now, to start off, my only experience with John Woo has been Mission Impossible 2, which came out in 2000, and Face Off from 1997. And now that I've seen this movie and I consider those two, specifically Face Off, this movie is wild. I can definitely see this movie placed firmly in the Face Off universe, and I'm going to declare that right now. But in this movie, on Christmas Eve, a man witnesses the death of his young son when the boy gets caught in a crossfire between warring gangs. Recovering from a wound that cost him his voice, he soon embarks on a bloody and grueling quest to punish those responsible. All right, so let's get right into general thoughts. This movie was interesting. This movie was definitely an action movie. Like, if you want to see some action, this is the movie for you. I'll say that overall, I do think this was a well done movie. Now, there were parts in it that had me very nervous because I don't even think I saw a full trailer of this movie. I maybe saw it mentioned on social media. I was like, oh, I'll go see that. Then I decided I'm going to see this movie. Then I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, okay. So when I got to the movie, it was definitely something that I was not expecting. Now, I will say, of course, spoilers going forward for this movie, full spoiler review. I was afraid, and we'll get more into it when we discuss the characters, but I was very much afraid that this was some sort of maybe propaganda film, and it's not it. And I think they kind of told the line a bit, but even within that, it's not overt. I think the highlighting of like the gang culture is the thing that probably has that stuck in my head. Also, the Rodney King movie, or the 1992, the film about the Rodney King beatings that stars Tyrese. Also, the preview played before this movie. So for me, my mind kind of put those together. But that being neither here nor there, the movie itself, I think, was well done. It's not without its flaws whatsoever, but I did enjoy it. And because the standard to make something a holiday movie is just for the movie to happen in Christmas, like look at the Friday movies, This is definitely a holiday film. This is something that I could see you maybe putting on at a holiday party, where if you have a couple screens going and they're on mute with the music playing, this is one of those movies I think would be pretty fun. All in all, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed the takes that they took on the movie to make it a little bit different. I thought cinematography was great. I thought the action scenes were phenomenal, though at times very Avengers level, very Daredevil, very Netflix street level hero. Like, everybody in this movie is an Avenger. So you got that to look forward to. So if you do want a kind of fun, gore, gruesome, action-packed, because there's a lot of blood. There is blood in here. There were several times in this movie where I was like, well, I jumped. And not because I'm squeamish, but because they were just hitting it. And this makes me think I need to revisit Face Off, because I'm sure the gore, gruesomeness wasn't to that same degree in 97. But because this is a John Woo movie, I'm curious. So now for the plot. The main character, Brian, he is dealing with losing his voice through gun violence, and also losing his child, and losing his voice while trying to avenge his child that was murdered. And him and his wife go through this like whirlwind of emotions, dealing with the aftermath of this very terrifying event that they've experienced. And it is this movie is so, like, it's grounded in reality, but there are certain parts of it that feel almost surreal, almost elevated to like an absurd degree. And again, because Mission Impossible 2, which is already like an Avengers film, just like the Fast Furious franchise, I don't think it's enough to pull you out of the film. There may be a moment or two where you're like, okay, what the hell is going on here? What is happening here? But I think that overall, the movie is solid. You got a beginning, middle, and end, and you have this treatment of it, which I'll just get right into it. This movie is silent. It is completely silent. So if you saw the trailer, you noticed that in the trailer for this movie, there's nothing but holiday music playing. I think Silent Night is playing. And I thought that was like an aesthetic directing choice, editing choice, but no, the whole movie is silent. So in the movie, you may have, maybe, and I'm being really generous, 10 minutes of actual audio spoken. And in that is from the radio. There's some police radios you hear some speaking, and then there's like the regular radio from the car that you hear. And then there is the wife speaks ever so often, but it's always something like that's a high emotional situation where, like, when the son Taylor was murdered, I want to say she said baby. No, I'm sorry. The aftermath of Taylor being murdered, when they finally came back home, Brian and his wife, and he lost it. And she spoke to him, but it was so soft that, yes, you could hear it. I was in a movie theater, but even if you don't hear it, it's like, oh well, because nothing changes. Because her emotions rain through. There was a moment, where else did she speak? She spoke another time when they eventually got a divorce. Like when they split. I don't know if they got divorced, but they split. And before she left the house, and it was like, I'm okay, or you're okay, or we're gonna be okay, or something like that. But it was so soft. It was just loud enough to register as her speaking, but not loud enough for you to, if you're not really paying attention, you're not going to hear her. And I thought that was a choice, and I thought it was a pretty good choice. I went into it not knowing that this was going to be a silent film, and I'm happy that I didn't. Because at first, when we had the initial opening with the inciting incident and the constant back to back kind of movement running through those scenes, I assumed all of that would be silent. Then he'd lose his voice and it'd be silent. But then the rest of the film, we'd see people speaking. Boy, was I wrong. And once I realized, oh, no, this isn't just a choice for the beginning of the movie. This is the entire movie. I was like, yes, this is exactly what I needed. So with movies, one of my biggest issues in the last couple years has been, we're getting the whole movie in a trailer. Now, before y'all come for me, I understand that it's done intentionally to get folks to want to see the movie into the theaters, blah, whatever. But there's something in the back of my head where I'm like, have trailers always been this way? And I'm just now, like, as an adult who is reviewing media and like critiquing media and breaking down media, is it a personal thing? Like, oh, I personally don't like that? Or is it like, I'm truly fed up with everything being spoiled or everything, the whole story being told? But that's probably not going to change and not no time soon. So that I can get over it. But with this movie, reason I bring it up is because with this movie, me going into it, not knowing anything about it, seeing that trailer, and then in the midst of the movie, realizing that it was an entirely silent film, that to me gives this movie, if I was going to do like a 1 through 10, and let's say I was going to rate it like a 6, that for me would rate it at an 8. Because I, within consuming mainstream media, have not really been shocked at many things. I haven't seen a lot of things doing things different. And that's not even a dig at anyone, because tried and true methods yield results. There are only 7 types of stories to be told, and they're just repackaged with different aesthetics and characters. So it's not a bad thing, but the fact that I didn't expect this and that I maybe suspected something, and then when I realized the whole film was silent, I was like, yes. So even though this movie does have its flaws and drawbacks, I still would rate it a bit higher based off that alone. So even within watching the trailer, again, I thought it was just a editing choice to make the trailer silent with just music, but like, they really killed it with that. So kudos, shout out to John Woo and the whole team and everybody. So now let's get to the characters, and we got Joel Kinnaman, who plays Brian Godlock, which dope name, very comic bookish. But I want to go over Joel and where I know him from. So Joel, I first saw him in The Killing, and I watched that on the streaming app that start with the letter N. So I watched him on that years ago. That came out from 2011 to 2014. So when I saw it, it had to have been like 2012. That series is so dope. It is so dope. By the time this video goes up, there should be a podcast with me discussing vampires and colorism, and there is emphasis on Twilight. And the reason I like Twilight is some of the same reasons I like The Killing. Yes, they're 2 totally different projects with 2 totally different quality and types of work, but they are both moody and dark. And it's something that you could just throw on and just let it play. Like, it really fits the aesthetic of my personal life. It's just calm, quiet, moody. And so The Killing is where I first met him, and I enjoyed his performance. Now, for me, I think at that time, if I can recall, he was a new face, but he looked kind of familiar. Now, I didn't know him prior to this, of any of his work, but he had a familiar look, like a neighbor, like a dude you see at the toll booth or you see at the grocery store. Like, he just had a really regular down home look, and I like appreciated that, but I don't think I put that into words at that time. So I saw him in that. He was also in Suicide Squad, and then he also was in Hannah. Now, Hannah from 2019 to 2021, the series, chef's kiss. I ended up, as a quick aside, I watched Hannah, and I watched what is the spy film with Jim Halpert? I can't remember. I'll put it on screen if I remember, but I watched those back to back. So almost like they were in the same world. Again, another set of shows that I'm like, they're moody, they're dark, I'm for it. But so I saw him in that. I saw him in Suicide Squad. He was in Altered Carbon. That's where I saw him. I was like, okay, I like him in The Killing, and in Altered Carbon, he did pretty good too. And so I don't want to go so far as to say I'm like this super fan, but I do like him when I see him in things. He has not disappointed me yet. Anything I've seen him in, even if I haven't liked the project, I thought he did pretty good. So kudos to him for that. That being said, Silent Night, I think, is very much on line with the things that he has done. And I don't know, let me see. You know how we'll look at an actor, actress, and we'll kind of track their movies and their projects and how they've grown and advanced and kind of try to predict, oh, they'll be the next this, they'll be the next that. I can't really do that with him, but it isn't so much like his performance. I think it's just in the way that media is presented now. and how there isn't a true like action hero star like there was back in the maybe 70s, 80s, and 90s because of the way we consume media now. So I can't paint him into any role, but I can say that when it comes to physicality, he is probably someone you want to look for. Being from Michigan, and it doesn't really matter, but kind of sort of, he reminds me of an Eminem. He reminds me of certain men who I saw when I was growing up. And so I'm not a stan of his, but I like him. And so whatever he's in next, I'll probably see anyway. So kudos to Joe. Shout out to him. Then we have none other than Kid Cudi. He played Detective Vassal. And he killed it too. So, like, I'm a fan of Kid Cudi. I can say that. And I really like his acting. He's been in a lot of different projects that I think are varied enough that you see his range. Again, Joe was a great actor. I think he can do his job. But Cudi, I am a fan. So I haven't watched Intergalactic yet, which I need to. But he was in, I did a podcast on it. What is that show called? It was We Are Who We Are. And I'll link that podcast as well, because I think it was 2 episodes. Either way, I'll link that. He killed it. So in this, with this being a silent film, I did not doubt anyone's performance. Like, there's no one who was on screen I was like, oh, they're probably going to be terrible. That thought never entered my mind. My only concern was, how are you guys relaying emotion in this very silent film? You cannot use words. They would mouth some things sometimes, and he mouthed like what the fuck a couple times. Like, you could see, I think every actor accurately displayed their frustration, their emotion, and everything without words, especially Mrs. Catalina Sandino Moreno, Colombian actress. She played the mom and the wife. She's in From. I haven't seen From yet, but I heard that's a good series. She was also in Custody. I haven't seen that. She's been in things that I have not seen, but these look like pretty good movies. She killed it. I was like, yes, mama, I feel you. Yes. So I think she did a really good job at getting across her emotion, and her specifically because she was the concerned partner at the hospital. Then we did the flashback and showed Taylor dying. And so she was very much the mom, reaching out, dealing with the stress, then also being like the caretaker / lover, of course, of Brian, and like seeing her kind of get fed up with his ish. He would get drunk. He would wallow in his self-pity and sadness, which is to be expected. Your son was murdered. You no longer have access to your voice. You are now a changed person in a matter of a couple seconds than you were before. So not to say that that's a terrible thing, but I think she did a good job at getting her frustration across. And there were some times where they cut to her and it was like, this isn't necessarily bad or negative. It's just, for me personally, I felt like, what is happening? So there were times where she would get ready for work and he would be in the garage getting himself drunk, and she'd look through the door and text him. So that's the most speaking, is that they would text. And she's like, oh, where's my keys? I'm late for work or something. And he'd say, oh, I don't know, and keep it moving. But there was something in her looks that she would give him at times. I was like, I don't know that this choice translates on its own, but in combination with everything else that happened in the movie, I think it did. But I was like, I wonder if there's something else that she could have done. But long story short, she got the point across, and she was very frustrated at his behavior. So much so that the moment that they were actually splitting up, it kind of took me by surprise for a second. So I'm someone who prides myself on like recognizing patterns. So I'm able to kind of predict what's going to happen in pretty much any show, movie, or anything to a really good degree. So if I may not have 100% guessing rate, but I'm right there at 91.689321 or something. I'm very close. And I wonder if the lack of speaking maybe hindered that for me, which I don't know. So throughout the movie, where we see that they are growing further and further apart, and we can see that she's getting fed up. When she finally does get fed up, you're not aware of it right away, but they're on the couch and she's in his arms and sleeping. And I'm like, oh, they made up. You know, they're finally about to get it together, but that's actually when she's leaving him. And that's when she said something like, it's okay, we're going to be okay. And I remember hearing her words, but a lot of this movie's beauty is that you are projecting your own ideas onto it. So when she said that, in my mind, I'm thinking they finally had a conversation about their son. But it wasn't until soon as they stood up and she started walking and he was behind her, I was like, oh, no, they're done. And lo and behold, she picked up her luggage and walked out the door, and they were done. And talking through this, though I do have my reservations about parts of the movie, I do think that I'm starting to like it more. I think I'm starting to like it more just through talking through the movie. So all of that happens. Miss Catalina, kudos to you. She did a really good job. So who else? There was quite a few people in this movie. Harold Torres, he played the big bad wolf. He played the big bad guy. And one of the things that made me kind of frustrated with the movie initially was it felt like, and y'all talk to me in the comments if you feel this way, or even if you dispute it, but it felt like they were going the route of like, big bad brown people being evil, so we got to get rid of them. And that felt a little, I don't know. There were times in the movie where I was like, okay, what's really happening here? Like, is this the movie we're gonna get? That's when I thought it was like, oh, propaganda. But it was a lot. They focused a lot on the gang culture, and I believe we were in LA. We're in California. So even though I felt that way initially, I kind of pulled back because that's not the area in which I was raised. That's not my, I'm not intimately familiar with any LA, what we'll see is like gang activity that you'll see highlighted in a movie based in California. That's not my life. I'm not familiar. So it's like, I feel this way, but is it me not being in the know from like personal experience, or is it truly like this white man get revenge on all of these brown people, like Ronin when Hawkeye during the snap went crazy and killed all those damn POCs who were criminals, when like you are from America where there's a ton of fucking white terrorist organizations that are terrorizing people here, but you didn't go after the KKK or nothing. You went all the way to Yakuza, but I digress. Once I saw that Brian wasn't a cop, that he was like a cable installation person or something like that, I was like, all right, maybe this ain't what we getting. So with those initial concerns, I got over it and kind of just enjoyed the movie for what it was, which was a pretty good movie. There were some choices made. Now, I don't understand the intricacies of firearms and other weaponry, but some of this felt like, how are we reloading this gun this degree? The one thing that really got me, that I was like, okay, now y'all just fucking playing in my face. There is a kind of Daredevil hallway type scene where Brian has infiltrated the building of the gang members, and he is taking these motherfuckers out one by one. And now that isn't really an issue, because whatever, it's an action film, we got to get the bad guys, sure. But there was this moment when he slid his bicycle underneath the door before it closed, and he got in and he started taking people out. I was like, okay. But moments before, the very fact that he's even there is because he got a text message from a phone he confiscated that had a group chat with all these other gang members saying, come back home now to home base. I was thinking, if you just, as the criminal mastermind, just received a text from your homeboy on the scene who's documenting all of the murders, and then the phone gets taken and you, again, as the criminal boss, are watching your homeboy who was just doing the reconnaissance be murdered, and now that person has sent you a video, it would lead you to believe that the person who is your homeboy on the inside is not the one who sent you the video of his own death. So when you do the group message to everybody to come back to home base, why not exclude his number? I was like, why are you still corresponding with everyone in a group chat? That makes no sense. Also, was this even a group chat before? Because when Brian killed that guy and then sent the video, no one else responded. I don't know. Maybe I need to watch it again. But I was like, this is weird. So when Brian shows up and he is like, so they're in this warehouse, which is like this, I think it's a glass factory or something. I was thinking, why is this criminal headquarters so dirty? This feels disgusting and dirty. It feels like, but I'm also like, maybe that's what happens, but like also, do we not have a better home base? But think of like a bunch of flights, like maybe 20, 28 levels high or whatever, 16, 20, I don't know, whatever is high. So Brian is essentially coming into the facility and going up this spiral staircase. And I say spiral, not like we see in like classic new homes, but like it's like a brick stairwell that's on whatever, you'll see, watch the movie. But he goes up and he's shooting people and taking them out. And I'm thinking, if we are at war right now, which a quick aside, he made a point of like writing out on his calendar where he documented everything, start a war. But I was like, a gang war. And I'm thinking, and this is just my ignorance, so y'all let me know. Is the gang war a gang war if it's the gang members of the police? Is that not just like rival factions? I feel in my mind, a gang war is gang A and gang B fighting each other. That's not what happened here. So either I'm uninformed or that was worded differently. But I was like, it's not a gang war. But let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. So when everyone came back, I'm thinking, okay, I saw at least 4 cars in front of him. So there got to be at least, let's say it's 20 people already there. Let's say it's 15 people who pull up. Why are we going at this man one by one? Why are we doing this? Like, okay, we don't know he's there, but there are enough of us in this building. And why are we not talking to each other? He should not have been able to take these people out. Now, this is why I say this is a fucking Avengers movie. This man is shooting these people, just reloading, shooting. Now, some of these Latin men is going down, but some of these Latin men is popping right up like they took a super soldier serum. And I said, why is he blowing these? Like, there's one guy who got shot twice in the stomach and the chest, like succession, right? He bounced back like you thought he was down, but then he popped right back up. I'm like, bro, what are we doing? What are we doing? I can suspend belief and be like, some of these people may have on bulletproof vests, but you, the movie, have not established that. You've established that Brian has on a bulletproof vest, but everybody else is just like tees, tank tops, polos, like they're just civilian gear, and they're getting. It was so weird. It was so fucking weird, but I loved it. I'm like, whatever. This is what we got. This weird, odd film where this Brian is just taking these folks down. So I do like within the film that we start off in April. It's very clearly April. Now, let's focus on that for a second, because I'm not policing anyone's clothing. But when you make a movie and a TV show, everything matters. Nothing is just insignificant. So Brian is wearing a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer sweater. You saw it in the trailer, which led me to think that this movie happened during Christmas, which it does. We get to the Christmas season, but it's April. It's right after Easter. And I was like, is there something culturally that I don't understand from like the West Coast where you celebrate Christmas in April? I've heard of Christmas in July. I was like, why is he wearing this? So y'all let me know, because there could just be a cultural blind spot there, a communal, societal blind spot. But it was so weird. And I'm like, maybe it was done intentionally just like for the trailer, but the whole first part of the movie where we're actually in the month of April, he's wearing this Rudolph sweater. And so when his wife leaves, I think it's like September or whatever, but they go through the calendar showing him doing his montage, because the whole second act of like fun and games is nothing but him building himself up, learning techniques, doing things to prepare for killing them on December 24th, right before Christmas. Like that's the point of the movie. And so I wonder, I said, what is going on? I think they mentioned Easter, but in Easter, I don't know, again, I'm from the Midwest. We ain't wearing no Christmas sweaters in Easter. We ain't even wore them in July, but I've heard of Christmas in July. So that kind of threw me off. But getting back to the topic again, it happens on Christmas Eve where he go through and annihilate these people. Now, Kid Cudi paying the detective. When Brian first sneaks into this man's house, this one of the Latin gang members, after doing some reconnaissance, which like he leveled up. He was a cable installation repairman or whatever. He became John Wick over. Now I ain't gonna say overnight. He did spend those months preparing. So, but I was like, what is your income like? You and your wife prior to this? You do have a nice home. I'm not a realtor, so I would imagine even though there's gang activity around, it wasn't cheap to get this house. I mean, I've seen Insecure. The neighborhoods look a little nice. But what are you doing? I think the wife was a nurse because I saw her in Scrubs when she left, or possibly a doctor or whatever. But like, bro, what are you doing? Because he spent money on his Batmobile. He spent money on his guns. He spent money. He got this big, nice camera, this big vlogging camera where he peeping out the scene. He doing research. And essentially what he did was drop off one of the gang members at Cudi's door. And he's wrote him a little holiday card, which Brian was nothing if not campy and over the top. It was like, I'm gonna make my point, because you could have just wrote out on a letter. He went and got a Christmas card and said, I'm gonna finish what you should have finished, or what you started, or some shit like that. And Cudi is going throughout the film after getting the criminal on his porch, and he calls for backup, and they take him away. He reads the card and goes through the jump drive and see all the evidence and whatnot, and he's like stressing about maybe should he go into this glass warehouse and figure out what's what, or help Brian or whatever. But Cudi, and I'm bringing up his body not to shame or like discuss him in like a sexual way or whatever, but he's a small guy. And so he has on, I think, a white t-shirt and then a jacket, like a members only style jacket, and some jeans. And I bring this up because this man ain't wearing no bulletproof vest. So when he walking up the steps, taking out folks too, I'm thinking like, y'all might as well be in pajamas. Just be in pajamas trying to take down this cartel gang, whatever. Cause I'm like, bro, you are an officer. You do not look prepared. You look like you're going in to teach a class, or you're going in to drop your kids off at school. You do not look like you're ready for a shootout. What are you doing, Cudi? Like, so what? But there is a moment between the two of them where they do meet up, not intentionally. It wasn't set up for them to meet up and be friends, but they met up eye to eye after Brian took out Ruiz. Ruiz was a bad motherfucker, bro. He was giving Brian a run for his money. Now, one of the things that kind of frustrated me is that we did get Brian being voiceless and no one else speaking in the movie. And I think had we have gotten a moment where him not being able to speak hindered him from getting something done, or stopped him from getting something, where the movie did a good job of like act 1, 2, and 3, inciting incident, the fun and games, the dark night of the soul, the conclusion. Like, they did all of that. But I think using the non-verbal part as like just a feature of the film or an accent of the film was good, and it was something I wasn't expecting. But specifically in that moment where Cudi and him, or Detective Vassar, whatever, saw each other, I think that would have been a great moment for there to be some confusion. Now, I'm going to get to aesthetics, and this is why I think so. Cudi is the only black person in this film. And so he visibly looks different from both the gang members and from Brian. Brian is a white man who, in the midst of all the violence and smoke and stuff, he's lighter skinned, just like the cartel gang folks. So in my mind, I'm thinking that would have been a key, great moment for Cudi detective to shoot him. Because you've already gone through and shot all these other gang members. And if I go into this room, because they never saw each other initially. Like when Brian got in, Cudi wasn't there. So when Brian went up the stairs, shot all these super soldiers, and then killed Ruiz and was just in this room with all this dust, that's when Cudi came up. He should have shot at him. And Brian not being able to speak would have been a very good, like, to see him injured, not from all of the gang members you had to fight, but from the person who you dropped off the information to, who was supposed to aid you in this. That to me would have made for a slightly better moment, because now you, as the police officer who did not call for backup, you're doing something on your own that you weren't supposed to do. You have now gone up trying to help the situation. You're making it worse because you don't know he can't speak, and then he can't speak, and now he has to explain to you whatever. So the movie still could have played out the same, because they run into this girl who was strung out on heroin, and she's part of the big crime dudes, whatever. And she ends up taking them down. Like, I was like, all right, girl power, girl boss, fight, whatever. Because they hesitated. I'm not hesitating just because you're a woman. You with these dudes. You with them. You sleeping with them. You hanging out with them. You part of the gang. You got to go down just like the rest of these soldiers. Like, I'm not hesitating. As soon as he hesitates, she got that boy in his stomach. But again, I just think if Brian had to confront Cuddy without being able to speak, that, and him being shot, that would have been, to me, a much better play on the movie and on the character, especially because all of those gang members, for the most part, kind of got some licks off, but one of them stabbed him in the thigh. And he did not slow down. I was like, what? This one, I'm like, is this a super? Why are you not taken down by that? So instead of having that gang member stab him in the thigh, have Cuddy have shot him in the thigh before all the dust settles. And then, there you go. A more, I think, more grounded, more important moment, because your ally has now taken you down. But, what do I know? I just didn't consume media. But it was fun. It was fun. There were some things that I think were missteps, but all in all, I do think that this was a fun movie. And as far as a recommendation, would I recommend this movie? I would. Now, who would I recommend it to? If you're someone who likes action, if you like a lot of violence, a lot of gore, car chases, all that, this is for you. If you do not like gore, like blood and whatnot, I think you still can watch this movie, but there are certain points. There's maybe like 4 or 5 like quick scenes that are almost like a jump scare, where you need somebody else to watch this first to tell you when to turn your head. Because there's a moment in the very beginning where it's a Final Destination moment. Someone's head gets like impaled, and it happens. You can see it coming because of the way the shot is set up. But even with it coming, my mind was, they're going to show Brian doing what he do, show the car, and then show Brian for the aftermath. No. That's not what. No, John Woo said, show it all. I want the blood everywhere. And so I would recommend it if you like action, you like violence, you like gore, you like a nice little story with a button bow at the top. Sure. It's a movie that I would like Joel and Halle Berry to have a face-off of like avenging their children. Because the way in which Halle Berry will go from sea to shining sea, from the sun to the moon to the earth to the stars, to get her kids back or taken care of ever since losing Isaiah, I want to see them two duke it out for like avenging their children. But all in all, it's a really good movie. I hope you guys, if you've seen it, let me know what your thoughts are. If you hate it, if you love it, or were you familiar with Joel before this? Did you know that Cuddy had a acting career? And Miss Catalina Sandino Moreno, I want to see her in more stuff now, because I think they all did a really good job, but I'm familiar with the other two. With her, I would like to see how she acts when she has speaking parts. Like what do you give me that? Because you gave me, some good shit without speaking. What you gonna give me now? So that being said, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave any of your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree, leave them in the comments and let me know. And is this a movie that you'd be interested in, or is this not your type of Christmas movie? Happy holidays to everyone who celebrates, and stay carefree, stay nerdy, stay geeky. And please, if you run into a situation where you got to wear something in Easter for 2024, don't let it be a Christmas sweater. I feel like that's why all this stuff happened. If he hadn't worn that Christmas sweater, he'd have been okay.